The White Sox need to address starting pitching in free agency, but it's doubtful they turn to a former ace to boost the rotation despite its prediction.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan. I've been podcasting here for over a year and a half and covering the team well before then. And also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, I'm going to get to Fan Poll Friday, going over what you everydayers thought about Luis Robert Jr. returning and the offseason spending plan after I discuss some more realistic free agent starting pitcher additions. But first, let's discuss the White Sox being predicted as a landing spot for former ace Lucas Giolito and how it's likely not going to happen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So MLBTradeRumors.com, Steve Adams gave his prediction for where pitcher Lucas Giolito will sign with in this offseason, and he listed a reunion with the White Sox. Now, GM Chris Getz did confirm that the White Sox are looking for pitching, but it's most likely going to be on short-term deals. And if he does take a 2-year deal, like MLB Trade Rumors is projecting at $16 million per, I still don't see it happening. Like, yeah, if he wants to take a 2-year deal, that is the short term, but I don't see him settling for $16 million like they are projecting, because he just turned down $19 million from the Boston Red Sox. And while Getz was not officially in charge at the time of the team dealing Giolito away in 2023 for Edgar Caro and Kai Busch, one of the reasons Giolito was dealt was because previous management didn't want to sign him to an extension. And I don't think the owner is going to change his mind. And he hasn't paid much for pitching lately, so I doubt the White Sox will go that high. And again, I don't see Giolito taking a $3 million pay cut, because then he could just stayed in Boston. And I would love to see Lucas back, but I don't think he's going to be signing for 2 years either. Plus, I doubt he wants to return to Chicago's South Side. Now, MLB Trade Rumors is the only publication I've seen with him getting a 2-year deal. He did finish the season hurt, but by all accounts, he should be ready for opening day. He can still eat innings, when he's healthy. And Zach Britton of The Athletic, he has Giolito getting 3 years, $57 million. Spotrac projects him getting 3 years, $61 million. Do you see Jerry Reinsdorf authorizing a contract for that much? I don't. And I just don't see that being in the budget right now. And while he can eat innings after coming back from Tommy John surgery in 2024, his 3.41 ERA may come with a buyer beware, as his expected ERA was 5.01. His FIP was 4.17 with an expected FIP of 4.59. But in the White Sox case, if he could still have an ERA at just around 4 and need up to 145 to 184 innings, that would be great. And he's done that. He's eaten 184 innings for the White Sox while posting, though, an ERA a little bit higher than around 4. It was almost around 5 the last time he was with the White Sox. As you remember, kind of when that spider tack inspection started to come, he wasn't as effective. Not saying anything, not making any accusations, just people, there were the rumblings out there. But I love Lucas. It'd be great to have him. But the question is, do you want an innings eater? Because that's basically what he is now. He's no longer, and yes, I think he was an ace. If I'm going on, hey, bold take, fine. Look at the numbers from 2019 to 2021. He was one of the best pitchers that the White Sox had. But now he's an innings eater. So do you want an innings eater around for 3 years when you got possibly more talented younger arms on the way? I mean, Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, and Tanner McDougal all have the potential to be aces. Shane Murphy might be able to spin the ball just as effectively as Giolito did in his prime. And let's not forget, Drew Thorpe, Kai Busch, and Mason Adams will be returning at some point next season, or this upcoming season, from Tommy John surgery. So you don't want the rotation spots to be tied up too much, at least long term, especially to a pitcher in his 30s for 3 years and almost $20 million per. because there is a good possibility that that $20 million could become an albatross. Could become a bad contract, because Fangraphs is projecting Giolito to have a 4.69 ERA and a 4.70 FIP in 2026. That's not exactly outstanding. And as I just mentioned about a minute ago, he got help clearly from some luck for that lower ERA. And remember, he had that terrible April. And we saw in 2022 and 2023 him not pitch as effectively. Also, would he even want to come back? Considering Ethan Katz, he's gone, and the team basically fought him tooth and nail in arbitration. This is from Joe Binder of Sox on 35th. He wrote this back in May of 2023, reacting to USA Today's Bob Nightingale reporting that the team was going to trade him that season. So think about this, about probably why Giolito wouldn't come back. This is what Binder writes. Though this comment might catch some fans off guard, it really shouldn't. Giolito will likely command a decent amount and is already known to have the contract disputes with the organization, most notably with his prior extension talks and the following arbitration. As the Athletics' James Fegan shed light on last year, the White Sox originally extended an offer to Giolito worth 4 years, $50 million guaranteed, that would have covered his 2021 through 24 seasons, along with a club option for 2025. Rather than accepting or even negotiating further, Giolito's camp declined the offer and didn't bother to issue a counter, since it wasn't seen as being enough to drive further discussion. Arbitration after the fact reared its ugly head and led to some public frustration from Giolito and his family. Quote, for it to come down to $50K difference prior to the filing, it's like, come on. It's an upsetting part of the process. It's why a lot of us don't enjoy the business side of the process, end quote, Giolito said. So right there, I don't think he left with the most fondest of memories of the White Sox. Now, again, Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams, they're gone. Chris Getz is now in charge. And again, Chris Getz was in charge of player development, so I don't see him interacting much with Lucas Giolito. But the fact that Jerry Reinsdorf is still the owner, and the fact that the White Sox probably, Hahn probably realistically thought this is all Jerry's going to authorize, I think the Giolito camp is going to be looking at the White Sox and being like, this is the same organization that completely undervalued our pitcher. And this is the same organization that won't pay the going rate for at least decent to quality innings eaters. But it does go back to, like I said, would you even want to clog up a rotation spot for 3 years when you've got younger, cheaper arms available that actually may have the stuff to still be aces consistently? Because Lucas, remember, at one point he was an ace for about a 2-year stretch, and then he just became an innings eater. Well, there are 2 possible predictions on pitchers that I have seen landing with the White Sox that could actually happen, and let's discuss that after the break. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. And if you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And I love how simple of a concept Prize Picks is. Pretty much, if I think a player is going to have a great game, I can pick the more option on the player projection. If I think the player is going to stink that night, I just go with the less option. The new stacks feature, that's a game changer. You can now pick more on a superstar player like Steph Curry's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot will save your lineup from a loss. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, you can get the audio version of the show on places such as Apple or Spotify. So make sure to follow or subscribe at wherever you get your audio podcast. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me and maybe some hope. Also, make sure to check out my written content at SouthsideSox.com or on tapsportsnet.com. So the Athletics' top 50 free agent board is out, and the White Sox are only a best fit for 2 free agents. Shows you kind of like what everybody's expecting the White Sox to do this offseason. They are linked to singles hitter Luis Arraez. I think I would rather go with Rice Hoskins or Josh Bell if you're going to be shopping in that type of area for first base / DH, just because I'd rather have a little bit more power. Although you do feel bad for Luis Arraez, and the Athletic, I wrote about it. Like, if this was 20 years ago, he'd be looking at a massive payday because he can hit for average. But now it's OPS, and it's doing damage and slug. And what he does well is he hits singles. And, that's just been devalued now. Pitcher Dustin May, though, is one of the pitchers that they have as being a fit for the White Sox. MLB Trade Rumors' other prediction for the White Sox landing one of their top free agents is Cody Ponce, who flamed out in the majors after being a second-round pick for the Brewers, didn't even make it there, went to the Pirates, pitched a couple seasons there, but didn't really do well. He then goes over to Japan and then Korea, and he has revived his big league hopes. And honestly, those are 2 options I can see happening over the White Sox bringing back Lucas Giolito. Now, Ponce excites me, even though he is 32, because of that Eric Fedde potential. And I'm talking about Eric Fedde when they signed him, not Eric Fedde now, who it sounds like, the Korean organizations want to bring him back. And that's where he might have to go to be a starter, as you saw him flame out after being traded by the White Sox. But the White Sox got the very best version of Fedde, and I'll take the very best version of Ponce then and potentially be flipped at the deadline. May, I'm a little bit more hesitant to, because it just feels like Michael Soroka all over again with May's injury history, just like Soroka had an injury history. However, if they can get him at Spot Track's projected number, I have no problem rolling the dice to see if he can still reach his potential, because he has had more productive seasons even when healthy, where Soroka was like that 2019 season, and then he just has never been heard from again, had a lot of injuries, obviously. The White Sox, took a gamble on him, and it, came up bust. But if it's at the Athletics projected price, I would rather go another route. I mean, I would almost just rather say just bring back Martin Perez, because you need a left-handed pitcher. Now, I have discussed Ponce on this show before, but there is could be another Eric Fedde-like addition vibes that teams are feeling when it comes to Ponce being reported. And he would fit the White Sox love for pitchers with good extension, as in 2021, his extension was listed in the 96th percentile per Baseball Savant. And here's what MLB Trade Rumors says about this comeback candidate. Probably a surprise entrant on the list for many readers, Ponce is a relative unknown to the general MLB fan base, but is firmly on the radar of big league scouts. The former Brewers second rounder pitched briefly in the majors with the Pirates from 2020 to 21, but was roughed up for a 5.86 ERA in 55 1/3 MLB frames. Ponce has spent the past 4 seasons pitching in Asia, spending the 2022 through 24 campaigns in Japan, before pitching for the Hanwha Eagles of the Korean Baseball Organization in 2025. The right-hander posted strong numbers with the Nippon Ham Fighters in 2022 through 23, struggled with the Rakuten Golden Eagles in 2024, and broke out with one of the most dominant pitching performances in KBO history this past season. Ponce, 32 next April, logged 180 2/3 innings with a 1.89 ERA out of the Hanwha rotation in 2025. He fanned an incredible 36.2% of his opponents against just a 5.9% walk rate. The huge 6'6", 255-pound righty piled up 252 strikeouts overall, shattering the previous record of 225. The KBO plays a 144-game season as compared to MLB's 162-game slate, and that should be noted. He also set the KBO single-game strikeout record when he set down 18 batters on strikes versus the CCG Landers back in May. Ponce sat 93.2 miles per hour with his four-seamer during his MLB days, but he's added velocity and now sits around 95, 96, occasionally climbing as high as 98 miles per hour. He pairs the improved heater with a cutter, changeup, and curveball, the latter two of which both miss bats at an above-average level. The breakout showing for Ponce has some parallels to that of Eric Fedde a few years ago, though Ponce's prior NPB success in 2022 through 23 is something that Fedde didn't have on the track record. Scouts who spoke to MLB.tr opined that Fedde had a better command, but Ponce offers more upside and much better weapons to miss bats in the majors. He'll be a year older than Fedde was when he made his MLB return, but we're betting that Ponce can still top Fedde's overall guarantee and a third year might not be entirely out of the question. I'm not sure I would go 3 years unless the team is possibly going to trade some of their excess young pitching. But if they can get him for the 2 years at $22 million, like MLB trade rumors is projecting, go get him. I mean, they need strikeouts in the rotation. Even before he left the States, he had a great chase rate in 2021 at 32.4% per Baseball Savant. Add that to the increased velocity, and he could definitely provide some stuff that can miss bats. And the White Sox rotation was desperately lacking that outside of Shane Smith. I mean, Sean Burke has the potential, but he couldn't command it. So you need more strikeouts. And if at $11 million, that's a steal in today's baseball because, again, strikeouts are becoming more and more expensive. Now, May, he would be a huge roll of the dice. As this past season, this was the first season he threw over 56 innings in his career. He logged 132 1/3 innings between the Dodgers and Boston. He posted a 4.96 ERA and a 4.88 FIP with a 142 WHIP overall. So you're probably saying, why would you even take this gamble? Well, he's 28, and it's a huge swing to see if he can still reach his potential because he gave glimpses of it in 2021 and 2023 with the Dodgers when he had sub 3 ERAs. He's had production. The problem is he can't stay healthy. I mean, and part of it's hard luck. I mean, he had to have surgery on his esophagus for, lettuce getting partially lodged in there. I remember that. He's had some issues with his elbow. I believe he had Tommy John. I mean, he's had some trouble staying healthy. But when you look at it, it just screams Michael Soroka. And if you don't remember that, well, I don't blame you because it happened in that historically awful 2024 season. But the White Sox tried to see if Soroka could stay healthy and recapture that amazing 2019 season he had, and he couldn't stay healthy. He couldn't stay effective in the rotation when he was healthy. He eventually had to go to long relief, and again, couldn't stay healthy, and the White Sox let him go. Now, the Nationals tried him out, and he was somewhat productive for the Cubs to trade him for trade for him at the deadline, but again, he was hurt. So that's the thing. I mean, the White Sox need guys that can stay healthy and log consistent innings this year because you don't want to be taxing your bullpen. And yeah, you would like to get a starter that can get through maybe 150 innings this year. Now, if he comes at the spot track, though, projected price of 1 year, $3.9 million, take the risk because if he works out, you can flip him at the deadline for a decent trade package. May not be something outstanding, but it's kind of like what they got for Adrian Hauser, maybe a former top 100 prospect that needs change of scenery and maybe some guys, some arms that can still be potential big league contributors. I'm fine with that. And if he doesn't do well, you DFA him for a small sunk cost. I mean, that's it. That's all you need to do. However, The Athletic is projecting he could get 2 years and $26 million. And I mean, I love what new pitching coach Zach Bove brings to the table in terms of pitch development and that, but I'm not sure I want to risk $13 million per on a very, very high likelihood that May's going to get hurt. And I know the White Sox are being cheap, but to me, it feels like they also want to keep clean books for next offseason after the CBA is eventually ironed out. And hopefully the young core has no regression or stagnation to really start adding pieces. I mean, that's basically what Chris Getz came out and said that I discussed on yesterday's show. And while Ponce at 2 years is something I would take, it is because the White Sox at least have a track record of making these reclamation projects work with Eric Fedde. The recent track record of taking oft-injured pitchers and making it work is sketchy at best. Well, it's Friday, so that means another chance for your voice to be heard on this show as I'll go over 3 fan polls I ran on the YouTube page, and let's see if I agree with you after the break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game and want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And I'm always telling you about how fun it is to play FanDuel's traditional money lines, the over-unders, and the spreads. But if you want to win some big-time money or at least double or triple your cash, play FanDuel's props, parlays, or futures. So, for example, think Chicago can ride this hot start to a surprising 50-plus win season? Well, the last time I checked, that's at plus 430. So you got a chance to quadruple your money if that happens. Let's say, though, you're going to be more realistic and build a parlay of Chicago having more than 40 wins and making the play-in game. Usually pretty much what they do. Well, that's going off at plus 308 the last time I checked. So a chance to triple your money if that happens. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Speaking of the YouTube channel, I rolled out 3 fan polls for you. And I do agree with all 3 winning choices. Although I want to be clear on Luis Robert Jr. And someone put in the comments that I've been dogging him. Well, I'm not. I'm just stating these things called facts and stats. And the facts are he's only worth $20 million to the White Sox. That's not good process. I mean, that is literally just pointing out what the reality is. I mean, I'm fine with the White Sox actually bringing him back because, like I said, I mean, he is a better option in center field than Brooks Baldwin. But I don't have to like the underlying optics of why they're bringing him back. And if you like Luis Robert Jr., that's fine. But stop making him out to be this thing that he's no longer, that he hasn't been for 2 seasons. That's all I'm pointing out. Because I do agree with the majority that, do you agree with the White Sox picking up Luis Robert Jr.'s $20 million option? 68% of you said yes. 32% of you said no. And again, I like what he can contribute in terms of crushing left-handed pitching, stealing bases, occasionally hitting a home run, playing an elite defensive center field. I've given him his flowers on that. But thinking that he's going to return to this all-star form that he's had in 2023, it's just, even with your eyes, it's just not happening. And I had someone say, like, well, he's the best player on the team. He might be the most talented player. And when he's going right, yeah, he can win a game by himself, but that's not happened much. I can count on my fingers how many times I've seen Luis Robert Jr. show the talent where he can basically win a game on himself. It's 2. He did it against the Braves in 2024 against Chris Sale when he hit that home run and basically caught everything that was hit to him, which was a lot. And there was a game I remember this past season. That's all. And I am frustrated that Chris Getz gave him a $5 million raise to pursue this white whale trade package that will likely never, ever happen. That's not dogging him. It's just, that's reality, guys. If you want to see reality different, that's your right. But that's all I'm asking. Try to be in reality, actually, not imagination. And again, I've even acknowledged, if I'm wrong, if he does return to his 2023 form, great. That's going to help the White Sox win. And eventually he could be traded for more timeline accelerating prospects because, again, he's not going to be signing an extension because he's represented by Scott Boras. But if you're wrong and saying, oh, let's keep running it back, you're eventually going to lose him for nothing. And there's the real risk of him getting injured. That's all I'm saying is I would have rather taken pennies on the dollar because, again, if he suffers an injury like Yoan Moncada happened in 2024, you lose him for nothing. And then you've absolutely lost that trade asset. Now, I agree with the majority here on which potential offseason outcome would be the most impactful for the White Sox rebuild. And for those watching on YouTube, I've got the results, the screenshot there. 43% said landing the number 1 overall pick. 29% said smart veteran free agent signings. 25% said hiring a good pitching and hitting coach. 2% said finding a pitcher in the Rule 5 draft. They still have not announced Derek Shulman being the hitting coach. I don't know what's delaying this. They have not announced it as I am recording right now. So if it does, I will probably react to it next week. I agree, though, landing the number 1 pick would be monumental, not only because it's a great draft to be picking at the top of the draft, but also it gives you the most bonus pool money. I mean, at a minimum, that should give the White Sox a chance to take swings on at least 3 high ceiling type prospects, first, second, and third round, basically. You could probably draft 3 prep guys with a lot of high ceiling. Or again, you could draft Rock Chwalski who's supposed to be a stud, or Justin LeBron, who's supposed to be a stud, and then maybe 2 high school guys, instead of, like, again, how they were only able to take 2 high-end guys this past draft in Billy Carlson and Jaden Foskey, but then they had to kind of go more high floor because of the signability type stuff. So that's the type of stuff that it really is going to give them a lot to work with. And the thing, though, that I do keep forgetting to mention, though, is at the top of the draft, that's going to change probably dramatically between now and July. I mean, last year at this time, the top draft prospects looked completely different before the actual draft happened. I mean, I remember Chase Lavalliette. He was supposed to be a top 3 pick. Ethan Holiday in November of last year, he was being hailed as the likely top pick. And then Lavalliette had that underwhelming year at Texas A&M. And the national scouts, well, they felt Eli Willits was the better prep prospect for the cost that they were looking at and took him. So a lot can change, but it would be huge. Now, the thing, though, that I think we are, 2% on the Rule 5. I mean, obviously, I know it's the Rule 5, but the White Sox may have found something to get contributors in the Rule 5. Now, I don't think they're going to get an all-star pitcher like they did with Shane Smith, but if they are drafting that high in the Rule 5 like they showed, you can still find a good velocity pitcher that could potentially be a contributor at the big league level that a team just doesn't have a spot for on the 40-man, and they do have to give up. And they found 2 of them by acquiring Mike Vasil off of waivers. So I think that the White Sox kind of have a model, and they should follow that. Now, do I expect an all-star? No. So that's the only thing that I will say. I was kind of surprised, 2% on that type of stuff. Now, in terms of the off-season spending plan, well, that's a divided group, because actually 35% of you voted totally fine with what the White Sox are going to do, basically sign bridge free agents. 34% of you are frustrated, 19% had mixed feelings, and 11% are indifferent. And like I said on yesterday's show, I'm between fine and frustrated. I'm fine with making sure the path to the majors isn't blocked for some of these prospects who have the chance to be better than any of the other long-term options on the free agent market. I'm frustrated, though, that there is a chance to add a long-term piece at first base, especially since the Mariners actually confirmed they're not going to probably try to re-sign Josh Naylor. I think I saw that on social media, that Jerry DePitto basically said, we wish him well. Now, it could have been AI generated, but I could have sworn I saw that clip. But he's out in free agency. He's not going to come with a qualifying offer for draft compensation. And why not go get him? Because, again, he's a Sox killer. He hits well at right field. And instead, they're going to go the bridge route when there's no young prospect in the pipeline right now to bridge to at first base. And I know first base can be devalued. I know, a lot of teams find first basemen in international free agency. They find them off the scrap heap, that type of stuff, even coming back from Japan, that type of things. But there is a legit guy that could help you. And they're not even going to entertain the thought because, well, I don't know. They must just really like Josh Bell or Rice Hoskins, and not terrible options, but man, it would be much better to go with Josh Naylor. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, or listen to your podcast. I'll be back on Monday with another Minor League Monday report, going over how the White Sox prospects did in the Arizona Fall League this week. It'll obviously be this past week on Monday's show. You can leave comments about today's episode on the YouTube page via email, lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com, on X, formerly Twitter, @LockedOnSox or @ToddJDub. Also, make sure to like today's episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel @LockedOnWhiteSox or wherever you get your audio-only podcast. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you Monday.